we're back, and we're talking Chasing Amy, directed by Kevin Smith, 1997. One of the most controversial Criterion Collection picks since Armageddon, I think. To quote Letterboxd here, we got a tagline. It's not who you love, period. It's how, period. And a description. Holden and Banky are comic book artists. Everything is going good for them until they meet Alyssa, also a comic book artist. Holden falls for her, but his hopes are crushed when he finds out she's a lesbian. Bum bum bum, because lesbians are scary in 1997. So a little backstory here, as Jarrett likes to do sometimes. Kevin Smith is the worldwide international phenom director of everyone's favorite movie, Clerks. He did a thing once. He made a movie. He is half of the Jay and Silent Bob duo. He really likes dicks and farts. He makes movies about dicks and farts, and he thinks they're really funny.
And Catholics.
Yes, because he is a Catholic. He's got that good Catholic guilt. And he is a guy who was around when Ben Affleck and Matt Damon were coming around. People used to think that he ghost wrote the screenplay for Good Will Hunting. Because of this movie, actually, Chasing Amy. Mm-hmm. People used to think that he was the guy who actually wrote that script.
Yeah.
This movie, when it came on the scene, it had a very small budget.
But is that true, RJ?
No. I'm pretty sure Ben Affleck wrote that screenplay, to be honest.
Yeah. Continue.
I used to think Matt Damon did, but in the most recent years, I think Ben Affleck was probably the driving force. So anyways, this movie had a really small budget, $250,000 or something like that, and it fucking killed. It made $12 million. It was a huge success for Miramax, and it started a very long partnership between Tubbo Kevin Smith and the Weinstein brothers or whatever.
Fellow Tubbos.
Yeah, so this movie won a lot of awards. It got a lot of acclaim because of its so-called grounded take on relationships and fear and love and his real raw vulgarity and his audacity. So Chasing Amy, I'm just going to talk to you for a second here, Jarrett.
Yep.
My personal history with Mr. Kevin Smith is one of both love and hate. When I was a young man, my brother, when these movies were coming out, he would have been around 15, 16.
Yep.
And when this movie came out, I was 7. And he really liked these movies because he was a teen boy. And of course he would like these movies.
Yep.
And I would just do whatever he did. So I would watch all these movies with him. And then I really liked these movies. And when I was growing up, I was a big fan of Mallrats and Dogma, because when you're a little kid and you watch Kevin Smith movies, those movies are really funny because there's lots of dicks, there's lots of farts, there's a poop monster in one of them. It's got all Dogma has a poop monster.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, it's got all the stuff a little boy would like. I remember seeing Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back in theater when I was 12 or so. My brother took me because I think I bugged him enough so that he would. I've always been a big fan of this Kevin Smith guy and the Jay and the Silent Bob. And then in the last few years, I grew up a little bit. I learned a little bit. I loved a little bit. And I realized a little bit that Kevin Smith is not entirely as I remembered him to be. He is a dick and fart man, which I think I am it myself.
You trade in dick and farts?
I trade in dick and farts as well.
Yeah.
So I get it. I mean, it makes sense. But in the last few years, listening to some of the many podcasts he's affiliated in, I think he has about 9. His podcasts and his recent movies, my my appeal, or not my, like, my wanderlust, I guess is what you could say, has faded a little bit. I am not the Kevin Smith fanboy anymore, and there are a lot out there because he is a fanboy, and he attracts a lot of the same. So, all that said,
Hmm.
I was a big Kevin Smith guy. I really liked all his movies. This was always when I got a little bit older. I think the last time I watched this was probably 4 or 5 years ago. And last time I watched this movie, I fucking loved it. I thought it was amazing. And then I watched it this time, and I had a few other opinions. So, in case you didn't get from the Letterbox review, this movie is about Ben Affleck, and him and Jason Lee are cartoon, or not cartoon, they're comic book artists. Ben Affleck draws the lines, Jason Lee does the inking and coloring, and then they meet a female comic book artist, Joey Lauren Adams, who was dating Kevin Smith at the time of this filming.
You've
In
done
case you didn't know.
this research. It's amazing.
I didn't even do that research. I just know this stuff
Oh, okay.
because well, actually, I not know this stuff. I didn't know the money it made. I did
Sure.
look that up. Um, but yeah, they were dating at the time. So he meets her and he falls in love with her, but she's a lesbian. And he's like, all right, well, whatever. She switches sides. Jason Lee is like, no, man, you're my friend. And he's like really against him dating a lesbian. And then Ben Affleck finds out that she has this really dirty sexual history. And
Whoa, whoa, whoa!
what?
What with this dirty sexual history?
Well, that's how it's brought up in the movie.
Right.
Is that it's like it's like this really taboo thing that like she has this very sordid past with lots of
Whoa.
sexual encounters.
Uh-huh.
This is how it's brought up in the movie.
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
talking out of line. And Ben Affleck's really uncomfortable with this because he is not that type. He's the kind of guy who's had a couple girlfriends and he's had a couple of sex with those girlfriends. And he feels very uncomfortable and he's not sure if he can live with the fact that his partner has this totally different sexual history than him. And that's the movie. So, with all that said, Jarrett,
Yeah.
do you want to talk about how you feel about chasing Amy?
Oh no.
Or
Well,
do
you play it. Lay out your cards, mon
Okay.
frere.
So, as I said before, I used to this. I think without a doubt, it's probably the best Kevin Smith movie. Some people might say Clerks. I also have an affinity for Mallrats and Dogma, but that's no one's favorite movie, so it doesn't matter. This movie, I think, in 2017, so this movie's 20 years old now. In 2017, I think that it is partially really dated and partially timeless. So I think the first hour of it is not uncomfortable to watch, but it's a little bit like, ugh, because it is really, really heavy on like the dick and sex jokes. Like really heavy. It's like, what are you, a rug muncher? You fag, faggot. And then it's like that's like the first whole hour, and you're just like, oh man, you're like, is this what this whole movie was? Did I never realize that before? And then I think in the back end, in the last hour, it kind of gets into some of the real stuff where it's just like people in relationships and trying to get over your own personal like hang-ups on things. And I think a lot of that is really relatable. Like you might not have been dating someone who has like this very vast sexual history and you didn't relate to it, but I mean there are certain aspects of any relationship where one person might feel differently than the other about something. And I think that is really relatable, and for that reason I think the back end is really good. But there's parts in the first half that you're just like, come on, because they're talking about all these different sexual things and how being a lesbian is weird and kooky, and gay guys are fags, and comic books are cool, and then there's this really bad music. Like the music in this movie is fucking unbelievable. It's like bad Seinfeld music where like Ben Affleck will walk into a room and it'll be like boom ba dum boom 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 ba dum down.
Not quite, but yeah, it's
but
like
pretty close.
it's yeah.
Pretty close.
There's not like that like incidental music, but there's just like this
Yeah.
like jazz fusion sort of like score that's like that was really popular in the mid '90s, which is when
Yeah.
Seinfeld still existed as a new
Exists.
show. But like yeah, continue.
It seems really out of place now. I guess. And then I don't know. There are a few things. The acting is really bad by a lot by current day very respected actors. Like most recently, last year's Best Actor Award winner Casey Affleck has an appearance in this movie,
Right off the
and you're,
bat.
and you're just like ooh, and then Matt Damon pops up later, and you're like ooh, and even my man Big Ben, he has some pretty cringeworthy scenes in this.
Yeah.
Like this, there's a scene where he's dancing. That's not very good. And some of his Kevin Smith's choices they seem very at this point dated, cliche, dumb type of stuff. Like there's two people will be talking and then like one person says something really like personal and emotional and then it'll like a pause and there will be like thunder and you're like oh, okay. Or like Jason Lee walks into the sex scene and then like he's shocked so he drops his chocolate milk on the ground. It's like the like the shock and drop thing. That's kind of dumb. Some of the dialogue is a little wonky. But it's like I said, I think the back end is really good. And there's just a few things where it's like when Joey Adams explains to her lesbian friends that she's dating a guy, everyone's like so mad at her. And I was like, why are they all mad? But then I was like, oh yeah, this was 20 years ago. Maybe they were mad. I don't know. And then I don't know, there were things that I thought were kind of weird where they're talking about like what is sex and like what is a lesbian. And there's a line where Jason Lee, I think, says, "Where's the penetration?" Or Ben Affleck said that or something. And she's like, "Ugh." It's like, I know probably someone has had that conversation in real life, but
Yup.
it's like, ooh, gross. And then I don't know. There are a few. I don't know. There's stuff I don't like about it, but then there's also stuff I do really like about it. Like I said, where I think the back end where they're just talking about being together and relationships. It's like, you know what? I get it. I see why Kevin Smith like got a lot of praise or a lot of attention for this. It's like, yeah, he was just being honest. But then I don't know. And he'll say something really emotional and good, and you're like, I get it, man. And then it'll be like, hey, what's up, fart dick? Which I also like too, but sometimes in this movie it doesn't seem fitting. So, anyways, what do you think about Chasing Amy?
Well, RJ, since we're giving personal histories when it comes to Kevin Smith, I guess I'll share mine. Like your older brother, I have like when I was 14, 15 years old, that's when I was introduced for the first time to Kevin Smith as a concept, particularly like being like a nerd, RJ. When I was 14 years old, hanging around a comic store, reading Wizard magazine, there came a point in time where like that was like, oh, Kevin Smith, oh man, he speaks for us. And I was like, oh, there's this guy making movies, and he's like, he talks about comics, and there's this movie where like Stan Lee shows up, and like, oh, Mike Allred like does all the art for this one movie, and I was like, whoa, I like all that stuff. This sounds amazing. So, and then like the guy who used to own the comic book store many years ago, James, he like kind of fashioned himself after Randall from Clerks, like,
Oh no.
yeah, so. I just remember like that vaguely. He's like, yeah, James is just like Randall. And we all talked about, oh, Clerks and like, it's like our life. Cause we were all, when you're 14 years old, 13, like whatever the fuck it was, we're like, yeah, man, oh, these movies are so good. My thoughts on these movies back then, the View Askew trilogy, whatever you want to call it, the Jersey trilogy. Clerks was like always just like, it had some good moments to it, but overall, I just like, I don't know. I wasn't really into this movie that looked like surveillance footage. And then Mallrats, I thought I actually liked the most of the three.
Yeah.
Even though that's the one that like apparently people really panned the most and like hated on a lot. Even though, I mean, it was like just a comedy, but it felt like a comedy. And Chasing Amy was always the one that like everyone was like, this is his best movie. Like he's really matured as a filmmaker. He's like, he finally figured everything out. And this is like what bumped him up into another level.
Mm-hmm.
But even then, it was like I never really liked the movie. I thought it was like kind of like, other than at the time, it's like, oh, Jason Lee's character, oh, he's so funny, and like he's so many great lines, and oh, there's the comic book stuff. But then like the relationship stuff when you're like 14 is not that interesting. And then you're just like, oh yeah, lesbians, that's crazy. Oh man, to see two women making out, you'd have to pay to see this. And
Mm-hmm.
this is like the, oh man, what a. But at the same time, I was like, I never really ever wanted to watch Chasing Amy, and like when it came the day when I had to was like getting rid of my VHS tapes to get DVDs, I never rebought
Mm-hmm.
the Kevin Smith movies. I think like Mallrats was like $40, and like
Oh
Clerks I
yeah.
never wanted to watch again really
Yeah.
that much, and like Chasing Amy, like even though it was part of the Criterion Collection and it was like a cheap Criterion Collection one
Mm-hmm.
to buy, it was like $20. I never bought it because I was like, I don't really want to watch that movie again. Dogma came along, and I remember seeing that at least. I think I saw it twice in theater, and
Yeah.
thinking that was a good
That's a
time.
Jarrett pick.
Yeah, I was like, oh man,
Yeah.
Dogma's really interesting. Yeah, what a great movie. No, but I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But after a while, you just kind of lose interest in these things. The last movie I saw of his in theater was Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. When saw that with old Bobby at the comic book store, and that movie was like definitely looser. It was just more of like a Hollywood movie, with all the jokes, insider jokes, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anyone watches that movie more than once. And then I
Mm-hmm.
didn't watch another Kevin Smith movie like Clerks 2 or Jersey Girl or anything like that. I did watch Red State sometime later because I was
Yeah.
like, oh, a horror
Yeah.
movie, that might be cool. And then I realized like, because like I had seen people online talking about how bad of a director he was, how he doesn't know how
Mm-hmm.
cameras work, he doesn't know how to shoot things, and I was like, well, that seems harsh.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense. But I remember watching Red State and being like, boy, these action scenes are really badly done. Like they're just like
Mm-hmm.
he just like it's just repetitive. Like he doesn't know how to make scenes work, and that was like where I went, oh. And I never saw Tusk. And
Yeah.
like,
Me
is
neither.
it what's the one? Ride Along or
Yoga hosers.
no, that's his
Oh, cop out.
cop out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which apparently is just like horrendous. And then Yoga Hosers is even supposed to be even worse.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize until the other day that that movie stars his daughter, who he named after Harley Quinn.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so that's like
Mm-hmm.
my like history with the filmography of Kevin Smith. I hadn't watched Chasing Amy probably since like '99 or something like that. So we're coming up on like 20 years since I watched this movie. It's a movie I have like very little interest in actually watching.
Right.
So I was kind of like, not looking forward to this. I actually even bought this like Criterion Chasing Amy on DVD because it was like $4
Yeah.
at the pawn shop, and I was like, yeah, whatever, I'll get it. And I bought it like
Yeah.
months ago. So popped it in, and I was like, oh, here's an introduction by Kevin Smith. And like I don't listen to Smodcast. I don't listen to like the whole family of Smith stuff. And it all my like hatred and making fun of Kevin Smith over the last like 10 years all came rushing
Bubbled
back.
up.
And I was
Yeah.
like, oh fuck, this guy's so annoying. Like his voice and his like just
Mm-hmm.
that smarmy kind of like indifference that he's mastered. I started remembering like that video of Kevin Smith watching some episode of The Flash and crying, and he
Oh yeah.
videotaped this, and
Yeah.
and then like him being asked to pay for another seat on an airplane because he was like so obese at that point, and
Too
then
fat
like
to fly.
yeah, and then he got online to complain about it and like try to
Mm-hmm.
get like rally up support. It's like holy fuck.
He
Um,
did too.
he was a big boy. Yeah, and then there was the his legendary tweet from like 2009, which I'll quote here: "10 years in, and we bone like we're cheating on each other with each other. A decade plus, and her clit brown taint area still pones my dick."
Oh God. Why do you say legendary? Does anyone talk about that?
They do.
I've never heard of this before.
It's like a joke every year. Yeah, it's been 9 years since this tweet. It's like the word because it's like holy shit. Like what the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah.
But it's like it's classic
Fun.
Smith. Classic Smith.
Classic.
So
Classic Duncan.
so hey, we're here talking about Kevin Smith. His
Oh yeah.
I'm assuming only contribution that there'll ever be to the Criterion Collection. So to talk about this movie, The opening
Mm-hmm.
credits, we get some of that like this like mid '90s sort of musical score. It's like
Yeah.
like probably the most interesting music in the movie, and it's like over these like panels of the Blunt Man and Chronic comic book.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't mention that. So Oni Press, a little small publisher, they were actually publishing these like Kevin Smith comic tie-ins, and
Right.
there was like a bunch of different ones. Like there were like there's like a Clerks comic that I think like Duncan Fegredo drew, and then like Mike
Mm-hmm.
Allred drew like a Blunt Man and Chronic comic. There was a mini series like with like Jay and Silent Bob go. It was like a prequel to Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, where they go to like the like Los Angeles and check out the porn industry.
Right.
And it's just like all this stuff. I was like thinking about. I'm like, oh man, this like Mike Allred art's like not even very good because it's like him trying to do this like semi-realistic sort of art style and like capturing
Mm-hmm.
people's likenesses that just like didn't quite work. Um, and like I still am like a Mike Allred fan, but I remember like this period of time, Mike Allred was also trying to do his own like multimedia like filmmaking stuff. Like he had this comic at the time called
Mm-hmm.
Red Rocket 7. They were like all printed at the size of like records, and it was like a story about aliens and their impact on the history of rock and roll in America and the UK.
Mm-hmm.
And he made like a CD that was like himself playing like as one of the characters, and then he made a movie called Astro-esque that it's a bad
Is it
scene.
good?
No. And I own these things.
Okay.
I paid like $30 back in the day for these tapes, and I think I still have
Yeah.
them somewhere. But they're bad. Anyway, so seeing Mike Allred here, who pops up playing himself, he gets the quote of,
Yeah.
"I love Chow Yun Fat. I just don't see him playing Madman." Because see, back in
Yeah.
1997, it was like, haha, Chinese person playing a white guy. That's wacky. So it's like,
If only he knew.
what times we live in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we're hit with that music you mentioned, which is a
Bum,
constant
ba-dum, ba-dum,
like,
bum.
and even like the like actual songs that are dumped in here,
Yeah.
real bad. So then we get like shots like at the comic convention, which is like some real dirt worse. Like, man, this isn't what comic conventions. I don't even know if they looked like this at the time, but it's like clearly just shot in a
Yeah.
rare area where they only had like access to one side of the room,
Mm-hmm.
and you get just like conversations with like comic fans, but
Mm-hmm.
like everything's like really like overly cropped or something. Like I'm not sure if this is just like because Kevin Smith's such a great cinematographer or like filmmaker, but like characters' heads are just like cut off awkwardly in a way that you never see in like professional movies. And you're
Yeah.
just like I was just like, oh my god, like, and they keep cutting back and forth, and everything's just like too close. The color, like
Mm-hmm.
s- this, the colors in this movie are just bad. Like he couldn't light a fucking goddamn bathroom. Um,
Ooh,
Oh
sick
man, sick burn.
burn.
The inker joke scene that opens up this movie. It's like
Mm-hmm.
I've been hearing that one for way too long. It seems to
The
be like
Tracer.
the Tracer shit with Jason Lee. Like him talking, his dialogue is just like atrocious.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those things that like, so Kevin Smith, he went on to like write some comics as well. He wrote some Daredevil comics, he wrote some Green Arrow comics, and like his thing was always like he's so good at dialogue and writing great like banter and characters. That was not
Mm-hmm.
on display here watching this movie. It's like this is like that
Yeah.
window of time after like Quentin Tarantino kind of like popularized this idea that you could have pop culture references in the way that your characters talked.
Yeah.
And so Kevin Smith's like, oh, I can do that too. This is how my friends talk. This is just like
Yeah.
it just comes to me so naturally, and so
Mm-hmm.
he does it all the time. So those characters are just like him, iterations of him talking amongst themselves about things, and it's always about like at the end of the day, like what one character will get like the leg up over another character, but it's because
Mm-hmm.
he wins. He wins every conversation with himself.
Yeah.
Yeah, the acting in this movie is just fucking horrible, and it's endless.
By everyone.
Everyone involved, just like it's like
Yeah.
holy fuck, Ben Affleck really came a long way from this.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I was like, when I was watching this, I was like, whoa, that's Casey Affleck. That's nuts. I'm like, wait, that's Ben.
Yeah.
It's Ben's younger brother. Obviously, he's in this movie too. It was just like it
Mhm.
was really strange seeing him pop up in this because like at the time. I think I vaguely remembered Casey Affleck or Ben Affleck had a younger brother. I just vaguely remember that.
Mhm.
I think when I was watching this movie last time. Yeah, and so the first scene that like tips this movie over into like worst movie in the Criterion Collection, one of the all-time worst movies in my canon.
Oh
All,
dear.
vile, horrible fucking filmmaking, RJ. This movie's fucking terrible.
Oh dear.
Yeah, so the Hooper X stuff. So we have like the one black character in this movie. He's named Hooper X, and so of
Oh
course like
yeah.
because it's like oh it's like Malcolm X, ha ha ha. And so his whole thing is that he's a cartoonist, I guess, in his own right. Either he's a writer or artist. I'm not sure which it is. And he's selling himself as like the angry black man cliche. And
Yeah.
like he's talking to a room full of white doughy comic people, and he's like just doing the whole like shtick of being an angry black man making angry black comics. And then the thing is that Banky and Holden, they come in and they ask stupid questions like what's a Nubian, which I remember people thinking is like hilarious, and they talk about forever and ever because Jason Lee because Banky's a great character, he's so relatable. And then we get this like horrendous like sub Tarantino Star Wars dialogue shit that's just like
Oh yeah.
it's just endless, and it's just like this is cringeworthy. And then you get the black rage scene where he pulls out a gun and starts firing this gun, and you're
Black
like,
Rage.
and yeah, and everyone's like, and everyone goes running out, and they're like, how is it that you don't get arrested? And it's like, oh, my publisher asks me to do it, and no one seems to care. And then it turns out, oh, he's not an angry black man, he's just a gay black man. Isn't that crazy?
Mm-hmm. Well, being gay is crazy, Jarrett.
Well, it's like, yeah, if he was just a gay black man doing his comics, then people like comic fans would reject him and be horrified and shut him out. So being an angry black man will drum up sales, I guess, which like
Of course.
doesn't really make sense to me. So anyway, that made no sense. Then we get Archie jokes about how Archie's gay, and then we get that back and forth. It's painful. We get lines like I feel a hate crime coming on.
Like, go on. Tell me how you really feel.
Here's my next thought. These people are fucking gross.
Yeah, they're dirty. Hey.
They're like I'm talking about like Holden and Banky.
Yeah, they're dirty.
They're vile. Like this movie
Yeah.
is vile because, like I said, this is all Kevin Smith. Like this is all him fully on display. Like this is just the way me and my friends talk, and it's like, is it? Like holy fuck! Like it's a window in time when people would be like pretty honest with the way that they talked because they weren't, I guess, policed by social norms now. It's like watching this now. It's like, what the fuck is this movie? Who is this movie for? And I think about how like this movie normalized shit that like
Right.
people still probably think this way because of this fucking movie. Like there's dudes that like still like, yeah, they're like Banky, and I'm like, oh, like, so that's just like one aspect of the movie. And it's like constant. Like I hated Jason Lee's character in this. Like he's
But you're him.
well, it's Kevin Smith. It's like a side of Kevin Smith that he's having a conversation with. God damn it. Then in all caps, never ever have I knocked on wood. I don't even know what that meant. Some bullshit. Anyway, yeah, there's shots in this movie of like Jason Lee like looking at this girl at the club, and it's like this like predatorial gaze. And it's the girl that like Joey winds up making out with after she sings. And like he's just staring at her like in this way, like it's like so creepy. And it's like, I don't know. That was probably funny back in 1997. Joey Lauren Adams' musical performance was very sweaty. It's like, oh yeah, they didn't know about makeup. Back in the day, they like it was $250,000 budget. They didn't probably have a makeup girl going around making sure, hey, we have to redo the makeup so she's like not like under all those lights performing for like, I don't know, 25 minutes, hours, getting the shot right and all that stuff like that. And then we get when else are we going to have a chance to see this? Because after the makeout scene, and the one scene that like I guess is still kind of funny is Jason Lee looking around the bar that they've been invited to see Joey's performance, and then he realizes he's at the gay bar with women, and he's like, oh, that's about it. But then we get like the cunnilingus stories,
Those are pretty.
the sex war stories that are so interesting.
That's what I mean. Like what you're talking about, it's like that first half where it's just like, come on, where it's like, hey, are you a lesbian, you rug muncher? Tell me about some sex stories. It's like, yeah, I was going down on this girl, and then like a tree fell on me. Whoa! And that goes on for like 10 minutes. You're just like,
Yeah,
come on.
yeah, yeah. So I don't know if you noticed this, but like, so Ben Affleck's got like this horrendous goatee that's like
Well, in Kevin Smith style.
he's missing a piece. Like
Yeah.
there's a section missing where it's like actually like a C.
Well, just so you know, yeah, he is missing a piece. I feel like it's because they tried to make him look like Kevin Smith. But if you look at the poster, which is also the movie box picture, he doesn't have the goatee.
Yes.
Everyone else looks exactly like they do in the movie, except him. Because I feel like sometime after the fact, someone was like, "Ooh, this doesn't look good. Let's try something else. Photoshop that goatee out of there."
Mm-hmm.
So,
I think what's
yeah, I
like,
feel you.
I guess I feel like Holden in his shitty '90s clothes being dejected by the lesbian girl.
Hmm.
Yeah, this movie is actually worse than I thought it was going to be. Um,
Nice.
yeah,
So you liked it, eh?
yeah. Talking about how women could possibly be attracted to other women on the swing scene is just horrendous. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
it is bad. Yeah. So like Banky stuff. I remember like having these like sarcastic shitheel friends like in like
Mhm.
junior high and high school, and they're all like all were attracted to this type of like character. Like Jason Lee, they thought was like the coolest guy because what is he? He's Brody in Mallrats, and it's the same
Yeah.
guy. It's Jason Lee playing the same shit. Like I never watched My Name Is Earl. Is that what it was called?
Yeah, he's a little different in
Yeah, he's
that.
a little. I guess maybe
He's a little
I never
different.
really watched it, but like there's something about his character because he's also in Dogma, right? He's like an evil
Yep.
angel, or I don't know.
He's like Lucifer or something, but he's also a
Yeah.
Scientologist.
Oh.
So
I don't know if he was at this point though.
he is now.
He is now. Anyway, so yeah, Banky in this, like just a horrific character. Um,
Mm.
like I hate it. I now find this stuff super fucking ignorant. The worst of internet snarking personalities. Like there's just people who are
Mhm.
like perpetually in this mode. Like they're just always fucking on. And
Yeah.
yeah, there's like the really intense scenes with him, like with Holden, where he's like getting mad that he's dating her, and like or like
Yeah, it's like
interested in her, and
why?
he's just getting like fucking angry in this way that's just like, what the fuck is wrong? Like what scene is this? Like people don't interact this way.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, I hear you,
yeah,
man.
I don't know. I don't know if it could, and I don't know if when people watch this movie, people are getting the right idea from like, hey, Banky's like really fucking weird. But like part of the two is like Holden as a character
Hmm.
is like really like nobody. Like he's kind of there's this
He's
chump,
pretty
and
shitty
he's just
too.
like kind of going along with everything. Like every time
Mhm.
someone like tells him something, he's just like, yeah, yeah, I see that. Then he has a conversation on a swing. Oh yeah, no,
Yeah.
I've come around to agree with this. It's like he's like again, he's a piece of shit.
Well, yeah, especially because it's like he doesn't know what to do, and then Kevin Smith, Silent Bob, is just like, "This was my experience," and then he absolutely just copies exactly what Kevin Smith was saying, and it's just like, well, that's not a solution. You can't just do what he said to do.
I think it is hilarious that Big Ben is wearing this like stained T-shirt, boxers, and socks on after a night of banging, because it's like
Oh
because
yeah,
we can't have him naked at all, like in this blanket with this girl that he's had sex with. He's like, so he's for
yeah.
some reason after I had sex with her, I'm gonna put my my clothes back
A
on
sweater
here,
on.
yeah, so we don't have me naked, but you can be naked under the pillow, under the blankets, because that's sexuality. That's just what guys are like. So I checked the time at 1 hour and 4 minutes, and I was like, oh
Hmm.
god. Um,
I don't remember my time code. I did check. I don't
yeah.
remember though, so that's my bad,
Yeah.
boys.
Yeah. Then there's like some really horrendous like ADR work done when it's like Ben and Joey in bed, and there's this like line where they had to get in this like deep dickin line about
Oh yeah,
and it's
you
like,
going deep dicking?
but it's like, but the audio's like, oh, it's like, what the hell? And it's like, oh, we had to get that in, and like that's the best
Yeah.
take we got, and we dumped it in. We'll get to laugh about it because like, oh, right, remember deep dickin? Hi, now because now
Hmm.
she's not gay.
Hmm.
Yeah, there's like, yeah, so again, the vileness of Banky. And I remember like people going on about this movie and like, and also like in all of Kevin Smith's movies about his preoccupation with his like with sex partners' sexual histories, and
Mm-hmm.
like people saying like this is very problematic. But in this movie, it's just like it's so bullshit. Like it just goes on and
Yeah.
on, and like where it's like people are just growing more and more like unlikable somehow. Um, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I don't know, like. Ugh. Oh yeah, and then we
I hear you,
and
man.
then we get the late entry of Jay and Silent Bob. And so like I thought, Banky was like a pretty vile human being in this, but then Jay Muse shows up and he's
Hmm.
like, "Holy fuck, what's wrong with this guy? This movie's like this shit's fucked up. This guy's horrendous. Like
Mm-hmm.
this guy's a fucking horrible human being, and he's playing himself. What a great human being he is.
Yeah.
Like making like fucking lewd, horrible comments to the waitress, and it's like, oh yeah, it's all in good fun. I'm like, no, I don't know, man. This movie just makes me not want
Mm-hmm.
to like ever look at this movie again. And then of course we get Silent Bob's monologue, and we get like,
Jason Amy, man.
oh fuck, his
Which, by
reading.
the way, all that's contingent on the fact that you know these two characters from like the other
Yeah.
movies,
Oh yeah,
hey?
yeah. I guess I didn't write that down. Yeah. There's like this like
Yeah.
there's the one scene in the movie that like I think when uh Holden and Amy or not Amy what's her name again? Fuck.
Jamie
Joey
Palomino.
Joey's character in this,
Yeah.
like when they're chatting and they're like, "Yeah, this is my friend. She fucked the dead guy in the bathroom. I knew her." Blah blah. And it's like all these like things that like kind of add like I guess some level like layers to the movie.
Universe building.
If you've only seen this movie, it's kind of like, oh, that's like an odd story. That's like oddly
Hmm.
specific and kind of weird in this like kind of odd comedy sort of way. But it's like, oh no, it's a reference to these two other movies that you might never watch because nowadays, like some people might just watch Chasing Amy because it's part of the Criterion Collection and it's just like this movie that exists. And then Jay and Silent Bob show up and it's like, oh, they look like the guys in the comic, and I guess like they're
Hmm.
being paid royalties to use their likenesses in this comic, and there might be an animated series. And it's like there's this stuff that's just there that you're like, I don't think this is how like the comics world works like at all. This seems to be like someone's
Yeah.
idea of like collaboration, like guys renting a fucking studio and stuff like
Hmm.
that. It's like
Hmm.
where did they come up with money? Or like when they talk about their sales, I'm like, okay, like
Yeah.
it's like,
Well,
oh,
they sell weed.
we had a good. No, I'm talking about the cartoonists themselves,
Oh, okay, yeah.
like how they make
I
sales,
got
and like
yeah.
all the comics conversation stuff is like terrible. Um, having been
Well,
at
you needed to be there.
I needed to be there, man, in the scene at the time. So yeah, Jay's horrendous, and yeah, Kevin Smith's like so fucking bad. I had to go show Chanel that Chasing Amy monologue again, like on YouTube,
No way.
and I couldn't even get through it. It's just bad. Like fuck this movie. It's so bad, dude. Yeah, and then yeah, painful jazz fusion of the late '90s.
Yeah, that's
The hilarity of Jay beating women, because there's just comments tossed
yeah.
out there about him just like smacking up women. It's great. Yeah, this stuff doesn't make any sense at all. Kevin Smith is the worst fucking actor doing his reading through his nose.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, so and then there's the big finish. The big finish of the movie. You get the big scene that I totally forgot about, which was like Holden's solution to save everything, like all his
Mm-hmm.
relationships, is for them all to have a threesome. And
Well, is that not how you have conflict resolution?
is that how we're going to save this podcast?
It's getting too it's getting too real for me, Jer.
Yeah,
I gotta check out here. I
yeah.
think we gotta stop.
It
I don't like the way this is going. You make me uncomfortable, man.
this movie makes me mad.
Sure.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, we get the big scene where it's like, oh, just like like Kevin Smith's conception of relationships and like the idea that there's people out there that think this movie like reflects relationships in the real world. It's fucking nuts to me.
Well,
This,
I said that though at the start.
yeah,
Remember, I was like, there are things I kind of see.
but
Like it's like I said, it's not
that's
that people like
mhm.
it's not that people are like, oh yeah, you had sex in all these weird ways and I didn't, and I feel weird. But it like I think if you try to relate it back to even just smaller stuff, it's like, well, it's like you do this, I do that, and
Mhm.
it's weird. People get hung up on stuff. I see what I mean, what he's
Mhm.
getting at.
Yeah,
I understand, but I clearly you don't,
I know.
or you don't
Yeah.
you don't feel that way.
I feel like the whole like it's all a premise of garbage essentially, and it's like so
Sure.
unthought. I just like I guess I'm super critical of Kevin Smith as a person, and this movie represents like so much of his identity because he totally throws himself into this stuff. Like it is like
Mhm.
I mean he kind of prides himself on like the closeness to his fan base and these stories and like how they're like all reflections of himself, and I don't think he's like a smart enough writer to like separate out his own like baggage and not even view it as
Right.
baggage and like think this is a good idea and there's gonna be people who relate to it. And it's like, yeah, probably, and like they're also bad. I don't know,
Mhm.
like so actually you get that whole scene that doesn't play out, and it's like probably like it's like the poignancy that he's going for now, like he's striving to like really land the whole story and be like it
Mhm.
kind of ends on this like unhappy ending because like that would be like really like a mature way of doing this, but it's like but the whole premise of the whole movie is just like trash. um
Sure.
Anyway, so yeah. Oh, and then we get the denouement of the going back to the
Mhm.
comic convention, which is just like the same day they shot the earlier part, they just shot it again later
Mhm.
on with the characters sitting at two different booths. Um, and then we get like. I saved you a copy with fucking Holden coming along with his comic drawn by Mike Allred. Then he plops it down in front of her. She's like, "I didn't draw this," and he's like, "It's like, oh god,
I did.
I saved you a copy. I did some thinking, and like we're just
Mhm.
gonna go our separate ways, all three of us. We just can't go back to the way it was." And yeah, so poop.
Hey, Jer,
Yeah.
I think after we've done this podcast for a while, we can't go back to the way it was.
Yeah. So yeah,
And
I was going to mention. So yeah, the film was originally inspired by a brief scene from an early movie by a friend of Smith's, where one of the lesbian characters imagines her friends passing judgment on her for selling out by sleeping with a man.
I thought it was just based on his own sexual history, but
Well, I mean, it's like a
in
common.
part,
It's a
in part,
theme. It's a theme in his movies because, like, back in Clerks, it was like the whole like, oh, she gave how many blowjobs to how many guys? Like that was like the whole thing.
yeah.
37, whatever the hell it is. Yeah. So fuck this
Gotcha.
movie and fuck Kevin Smith.
Well, there you go.
There you go. Hey, so
There you go.
Kevin Smith revealed in early 2009 at a Q&A
Yeah.
session in Vancouver that he and the film's cast were currently recording new material for an upcoming Criterion Blu-ray release of the film.
Well, it's 8 years after that, and it never happened. So
Maybe some people
maybe they
actually
did it.
maybe they watched the movie again and went,
Yeah.
"Ooh, I don't think this
Oof.
is worth keeping around."
Yeah. You could be right.
Yeah, maybe I'm right. I am right.
You could be. You could be right.
Hey, did you know that this movie still has it's on viewaskew.com, the Chasing Amy FAQ? Because so
Yeah.
Kevin Smith always prided himself on his relationship with the fans. A man of the people. So I mean, this was written back probably in 1997, 1998, and these
Hmm.
are the sort of questions and answers that he received and gave. Number one, why such a sad ending? Whether or not the ending is sad is up to the viewer. If you're the optimistic type, maybe Holden and Alyssa get back together. The important thing is that Holden had time to do some thinking and works out his hang-ups over Alyssa's past. In love, you have to put the individual ahead of their actions, always. It's comprehension of the past, not condemnation, that neutralizes insecurity. My fave here is number 2. Is Banky gay? Why aren't he and Holden still friends? Kev says, no, Banky is not gay. He would never cruise, nor would he ever actively pursue Holden of his own accord. However,
Hmm.
he does love his friend very deeply. Life comes down to moments. In the moment that Holden makes his off-kilter suggestion, Banky was willing to go the distance. A window is open, and in that moment, Banky agrees to a same-sex encounter of sorts. When Alyssa declines, that window is slammed closed, but Banky's already exposed something that he can't live with. Holden's knowledge that he would have gone through with it, for whatever reasons, whether it be to save their friendship or because he was into it. That's why they're no longer friends by the end of the flick. Banky's self-loathing.
I think a lot of people are self-loathing.
So is Banky gay? It's not that easily defined. But then that's
Yeah.
kind of what the movie's about as well.
Hey Jarrett, it's layers, man.
But wait. What are Holden and Banky doing with the hand signals at the end of the film? Did you need this explained, RJ?
I don't think so.
No,
I never thought about it in a
yeah.
weird way. It's like like they're just talking to each other.
Will that
Like,
hat will that hat Banky wears be available for sale?
oh, come on. Who asked?
The hat was available for about a year at our retail outlet. Unfortunately, they are all sold out, and a reorder seems unlikely due to the high cost of reproducing another batch. If a reorder is made, it will be announced on the site. What about that
What do
shirt?
you?
What? I'm just follow along here. What about that shirt Banky wears at the Comic Con? That would be the Fat Ass Fly shirt drawn by our very own Scott Mosher. It's for sale off our retail site. So it seems like the common thing is that people really like Banky and they want to dress like Banky because they feel like Banky. But one of their big concerns is Banky gay? Like, I don't know. I don't know if I
If
want
he's gay,
I don't
I'm
want to.
gay.
I mean, like, okay, it's okay if he's not gay because then I can dress like him and be cool and like say call people faggots and fart knockers and shit because
Yeah.
that's cool. At least back in 1997 through 2009.
17.
2009 is probably cool still.
Yeah.
And then some questions about will it be released? Will the DVD be the Criterion version that was released on Laserdisc? And some questions about was that Randall at the hockey game? Oh, speaking of which, that hockey game, like the cuts to like people being body checked on the ice, underlining his like questions and
Yeah. Yeah, that stuff's kind of
his aesthetic choices and tastes and it's just like what are you trying to make? Like this is like broad comedy stuff, and then like you're trying to do this like poignant film about like something that like in your era, it's like people take this stuff pretty seriously, and it's like kind of a sensitive topic. It's dicks, shit,
farts. Dicks, farts, and
got any
know what I mean?
got any follow up to my ramblings?
No, I think we're pretty well sorted out here.
Mm-hmm.
I think people know what's up.
Yeah. There's people who hate this movie, and there's people who love this movie.
Lay it on me.
All right. Well, who hates this movie? Common thing. It's like I think a lot of these are women. RJ.
Well, you shouldn't read them because you hate women.
Every decision Smith makes about how to portray lesbians reads like Smith deliberately picked the most offensive option available. From talking about lesbians like we're all virgins to Alyssa just needing to meet the right guy to the portrayals of her lesbian friends as either bitchy or present solely to entertain men with their sexuality and not ever to be people who have feelings or opinions or any kind of complexity. Character development is reserved for men and for the women in their immediate orbit.
What orbit are we talking about here? Space?
The orbit of the men themselves, which I guess is like, that kind of goes along with the territory of like, this is a movie about these two dudes. And then Liv here. These are half-star reviews. First of all, fuck this movie in all caps. Before watching this, I was like, and I should mention, this is by Liv, and the one, Liv, and the one before that was Norma Krautmuller, something like that. It's very small. It's very small font for my weary eyes at this time of night. Before watching this film, I was like, how bad can it be? It's got Ben Affleck and lesbians. Unfortunately, despite reading nothing but bad things about this film from LGBT people, I didn't foresee what a biphobic mess it was going to end up being. At first, I liked it, because it does have some funny parts, but the rest of it is just gross. It got to the point when I was praying for the movie to end already because I was so sick of listening to ignorant nonsense. Ben Affleck doesn't even look good in this. Ironically, I am a lesbian with a crush on Ben Affleck. So there was irony, whatever. So there was absolutely no reason for me to have spent time watching this. Please shave your ugly beard. Also, his character is beyond fucking annoying, which brings me to the biphobia in this movie. That's a new one. I'm not familiar with biphobia. So basically, every man in this movie is convinced that the world revolves around them. Alyssa is a lesbian, and Ben Affleck falls in love with her even though she's a lesbian, and they end up sleeping together despite her saying multiple times she's a lesbian. She's not established as bisexual, even though that would make sense, which instead makes the movie this really gross biphobic. This person keeps saying biphobic. It's just fucking disgusting. I looked up Kevin Smith's after the movie was over. Finally, unfortunately, I was met with good reviews on Google. That turns out to be his name's daughter's Harley Quinn, and I wanted to end this review with that. People have some problems with that, but I think that's like a latter day thing. Back in like 1997, Harley Quinn was just like a novel, unique character from the Batman animated series, and now it's like Suicide Squad. So then there's the people who love this movie, who on the flip side are all white guys.
Of course. Cartoonists?
5 stars. Kevin Smith is at his most mature in his intelligent exploration of sexuality.
Sure.
5 stars. Joel Clark. SJWs watch Chasing Amy and think the idea of a lesbian falling for a guy is ridiculous. Yet they expect heterosexuals to be blind to love and fall for the same sex. Conservatives watch Chasing Amy to see the idea of a woman fucking another woman to be wrong and dislike the ending because it didn't end the obvious way. If your life isn't controlled by bullshit politics and instead you understand the human elements in this film and understand that the world isn't so black and white, you should relate to Chasing Amy on a huge level. I know people and have been in the same position as many people in this film. Lesbianism isn't wrong, as the conservative right would see when watching the film, and the film doesn't pretend lesbians aren't thinking straight as the SJW left would interpret the film. Pull your heads out of your political backsides and watch it properly. Surely the way the film ends would indicate to both political sides that life is in general unsure. Love can be blind to gender regardless of sexuality, yet ultimately sexuality plays a huge part in our identity, and everything ends up a mess. Things can be worked out, or sometimes they just end. Chasing Amy is an accurate depiction of life to an extent, taking the comedy into account. Because humans are so complex in our thoughts and feelings, Chasing Amy is a very complex and dramatic film. More dramatic than I was used to with Kevin Smith, hence why it didn't click with me on first viewing. But now, I've got to say that Chasing Amy is a masterpiece. Seriously, for once, everyone put your black and white politics aside and just watch movies from a human standpoint. Look at yourself and put yourselves in the shoes of all the characters in the film. Even the one character whose views I disagree with the most is written in a very intelligent and human way. He's pretty homophobic, yet it's evident that his upbringing and place in the world has shaped his views. But he is at heart a good person. Extremely flawed and often just downright mean, but it's clear he doesn't want to see his friend hurt. Sorry, social justice people, that I see some complex good in this character. Sorry, far conservative right, that I don't agree with his homophobia. Sorry I didn't see the film in complete black and white. There are so many layers to this film, and I remain a fan of it. Sorry for the rant, but the reviews on this site filled with political agenda do my fucking head in. But I guess that's just the time we live in. Neither side is right. Look at yourself, the rest of the human race, and then look at the film.
Okay. I'm done. I've had enough with these.
That's it.
I don't like people who love this movie or hate this movie. I'm done with it.
Yeah.
You all suck. Everybody sucks.
Everybody sucks.
Oh, God.
There you go.
Oof. Well, it's good that you like it. I'm glad you loved this thing.
Yep. Sure do.
Yep.
Oh, so horrendous.
Nice.
Horrendous. Anyway, another one in the can.
There you go.
Nice. After the break, I don't know, fisting and...
You keep bringing that up, but I don't think there was fisting in this movie, was there?
Have I brought that up tonight?
You've already brought it up tonight, yeah.
Did I?
Astute listeners will know.
Fisting and threesomes to save the podcast. Tune in to the video cast.